College football season is right around the corner. What futures bets should you be getting in right now? You're about to find out next on Bet On It. What a blast from the past. I guess we're going to use our same intro from 2021. That's right, guys. That's the last time us three did a solo show together. But we listened to everybody in the comments. We listened to our WagerTalk friends and family. We decided to bring it back. Myself, Kelly Stewart, Marco D'Angelo, and Gianni the Greek. We call him Ace. We call him VR. You're going to hear me give him various names throughout the show. And this is our college football preview, guys. We're going to go through some of the Power Four conferences, plus a couple of extras. We're going to talk national champions here at the end. We got some regular season win totals for you guys as well. We're going to get right into it. Marco D'Angelo, VR, you guys are going to have to wait in the wings because I'm going to talk about the ACC first because it's alphabetical order. Look, Clemson plus 105 is the obvious choice here. And I do think we will talk about those Miami Hurricanes here later on in the regular season win segment. But right now, I think that there is a longer shot to win the ACC, and it's Louisville plus 750. As you guys know, they lost their quarterback to the NFL, but they did get USC transfer Miller Moss. Over 2,500 passing yards, 18 touchdowns last year with the Trojans. And what a better coach for him to play under than Jeff Brom. I think Jeff Brom is going to have one of the best offenses we've seen in his tenure there at Louisville. And I look for the Cardinals not only to win 10 games this season, but to give Clemson a run for their money on November 14th. How this is going to kind of work for this preview show is I'm going to give both guys a chance to interject. Marco, thoughts on the ACC?
Well, I think the ACC is one of the more wide open conferences, Kelly. I agree with you. There are several teams that could make some noise. Moss, he's coming from USC. We'll see if the new scenery is good for him. But, remember at the end there at USC, the old UNLV quarterback ended up finishing up there the last couple games last season. So we'll see what happens with him. But if there's a coach that can groom a quarterback, I agree with you. Jeff Baum is the guy that can get it done. There's going to be a lot of hype watching Bill Belichick in the ACC this year and what he's going to do with North Carolina. So you might find value with other teams because obviously he's going to command some attention. And then you always have the usual suspect of Clemson. We saw Clemson get off to a slower start last year. They rallied, got themselves into the championship game against SMU last year. So maybe they can return to the glory days, but too short of a price for me. So I don't have a problem with your play, Kelly. As I said, you like dogs. That is a live one. I got to give you that much.
All right, VR, your thoughts on the ACC before we move on to the Big 12?
Yeah, I mean, Clemson's got some ground to make up after last season, but they are still the cream of the crop. And when you look at them, they're a top 10 power-rated team. The problem is I think they're a little bit overvalued coming into the season. Having them as fourth right now in the AP poll, sixth in the coaches poll, I think that's a little bit too high for Clemson. I think they should be a little bit lower than that as far as the rankings go. But that's going to play itself out as the season progresses. Again, Clemson's coming off a season where they held opponents. They gave up 174 total points overall 309 total points overall, had almost a 150 point differential. The thing is, can they get back in where they were a few seasons ago? I'm not sure this version is up to par. Again, I don't dislike your pick. I do think it's live. And again, even though Clemson's the cream of the crop, I do think they're beatable. They're top 10, maybe barely top 10. I don't think they're top 5. I don't see them as a top 5 team yet.
I lied. I said we were going to Big 12 next, but we're actually going to Big 10, which is who Marco selected to break down. Marco, there's like a 4-horse race here in this conference.
Well, on paper, Kelly, there's one team that stands out above everybody else, okay? And that is Penn State. They are absolutely loaded on both sides of the football. This is the best team on paper in the Big Ten. This is the best team that James Franklin has had since his tenure at Penn State. But there's one problem. There's still James Franklin there, and that's my biggest concern. If this offense doesn't wake up this year with everything they've got, I don't know that James Franklin will be there next year. They're there to do it. Do I trust Penn State until he shows me that he can open up an offense? No, I don't, and not at the price that they're going to be. Well, then there's this next choice. You've got Ohio State, the national champions. Ryan Day finally got that monkey off his back, got the championship last year. This is a team, though, if you look, man, they were decimated with talent that moved on to the NFL from last year. Now, we know that the big programs don't rebuild, they just reload. So Ohio State's going to be fine as far as talent goes, but there's going to be a little bit of a learning curve, blending all the new players in there. And, it's the first show of the season. I got to get a fat and sassy in there somewhere. If there's any team that has a right to be a little bit fat and sassy coming into this season, it would be Ohio State after getting it done last year. Remember, there was a point of the season where people were calling for Ryan Day, job. And then they got the job done, got themselves back in position after the devastating loss to Michigan late in the season and got it done. So where am I going to go for value? I think there's a team that's getting overlooked, and it was one of the newcomers to the Big Ten last year, and that's Oregon. Now, Oregon's never going to be totally overlooked, but as far as coming into this season, it starts with Penn State and Ohio State. So for me, the value to win this conference lies with Oregon. They did well with their reloading after last season. Last year had to be a little bit of an adjustment for them, having to come and play those games, in the Midwest and, on the East Coast where you've got games where, those West Coast teams, have to play some of these Big Ten teams, traveling to Penn State and so forth. Those were going to be tough spots. Doing it for the first time and getting through it and now know what to expect, that's got to be a big advantage coming into this year. I'll take Oregon at plus 320 to be the sleeper to win the Big Ten. Sorry, James Franklin, until you show me, I can't do it with you. I'll be rooting for you as a Pennsylvania native, but you got to show me first, Kelly.
Yeah, Marco, I'm kind of with you here. VR, I'm curious if you like to do the same, or at least the groups that you work for, you kind of buck the narrative, right? When I turn on Fox, ESPN, CBS, NBC, any sports show, and the number one thing they're talking about in May is how Penn State's going to win the national championship, I'm going, So your thoughts on this Big Ten conference? As I mentioned, I think I could make a case for 3 or 4 teams here to win this one. I think that there's a 5-dog race. Talk to me about the Big Ten and maybe anything that Marco didn't touch on.
You nailed it. And that's why I'm so excited about this college football season, is because you don't have that one elite team that's 3+ points better than everybody else. In fact, you look at the top 5 teams in the country, most respected power rating is going to have them within 2 points of each other. That's 5 or 6 teams within 2 points of each other. At the top, you got to have Penn State and Ohio State. It's 1A, 1B before the season starts. Those two are right there. I think on a neutral field, you make it a pick 'em and let the market decide who they'd make the favorite. But who I think is being overlooked is Michigan. I really think Michigan, the price that they're offering may be a little bit too good to pass up, because this is a possible playoff team, and they're giving you like 35, 40 to 1 in the future. Again, I don't expect them to win the national championship, but it's a team that can make a run because they are being overlooked. Loaded on defense, especially on the line. Like, it's going to be tough to put up points against Michigan, and that's going to give them time to figure out the quarterback situation, because you have the transfer in Mikey Keene, and then you have the freshman in Bryce Underwood, who's supposed to be a stud. Those guys got time to figure it out. Why this defense keeps the scoring low, because you have a running backs that duo back there that could get the job done and put up points for you. So for me, I think Michigan's that team that's being overlooked this year because of just how good Penn State is, just how good Ohio State is. And I think they could sneak up on some of these teams. And more importantly, I think the price that you're getting on Michigan makes sense. It's tough to choose between Penn State and Ohio State, but for a long shot, I like Michigan.
Whoo! Let's see who you like for the Big 12. I'm sitting here looking at VR's notes and I'm going, man, you've got K-State, Texas Tech, Utah, Baylor, Arizona State, all basically in the running here to win the Big 12. VR, tell me why you think it's going to be Arizona State without Cam Scatterbo.
Because they came out of nowhere last season. And I think that's going to like propel them forward. Here's why. It's a conference that has a ton of parity. 43% of conference games last year were decided by less than one score or less. So there were a lot of coin flip results last season. And then you look at Arizona State, Kansas State, Texas Tech, Utah, and Baylor. That's 5 teams that are giving you between plus 550 and plus 700. So again, amongst each other, they're all almost a coin flip. But here's why I like Arizona State. Because even though Scatterbo was 39% of the team's yardage from scrimmage, which tied him for 4th in FBS, they return about 80% of their total production. That's the key. So I think you'll be able to fit in running backs that, again, they're not going to be Cam Scatterbo. But I think if you run like now, even in the NFL, we don't see those backs that have 1,500 yards. You have multiple backs. I think Arizona State's going to have to do something like that until someone steps forward and really tries to replace them. But I think they'll be fine just with that because they have a Heisman hopeful quarterback. They have weapons at wide receiver, offensive line to protect them. And the bulk of the defense is returning that only allow 22.5 points. Like, I think that again, you're losing a huge piece, but I think there's that overreaction. We talk about it all the time in the NFL. Like, no player's worth as much as we think they're worth. We talk about it with non-quarterbacks. Skill position players are worth very little to the betting line. And I think this is an overreaction. And I think Arizona State will prove that they're just much better than these teams, even though they're all grouped up. I was ready to Kansas State's right there, Kel. Kansas State's right there. I think it's going to come down to who's healthier. When it comes to football, that's the key. Who's able to stay healthier or who gets some of the bounces, who has good luck or bad luck. But I do like the favorite Arizona State at plus 550 to repeat.
All right, I'll tell you this much. I have a little bit of faith in Kansas State, but they kind of remind me of Penn State. A lot of those sports writers seem to be, high on my Wildcats. And that usually makes me, as a fan, a little apprehensive. But I do think Avery Johnson now getting all of those reps last year, finally getting to be the starter, finally getting to spend time as the first-string quarterback in this offense. He made a lot of mistakes last year, and I think he can actually start to capitalize on some of those. I know DJ Giddens left for the NFL, but guess what? We got fill-ins right behind him. Another two-headed monster in the backfield there with Avery Johnson's best friend in Dylan Edwards. And, of course, finally, K-State got a 5-star recruit in Lincoln Cure. A lot of expectation there. Running a 2-tight-end set is going to be very, very interesting. I'll say this. I did bet Baylor over 7.5 wins. That was another team that VR mentioned. And I will get to Texas Tech here at the end of the show because, of course, I had to pick some crazy long shot that's never going to hit. Marco, your thoughts on the Big 12? I know you have some things to say about Utah later on in the show as well.
Yeah, I got a lot to say about Utah later in the show. And just to rebuttal a little bit, my concern with Arizona State with them is they caught a lot of teams by surprise last year. And VR mentioned that. And you had a coach that, can we say it? He had probably one of the biggest set of balls in college football. Some of the trick plays and stuff that he ran at different times in games, I don't think that teams are going to get caught. They're going to prepare for things from him. Remember, they moved over from the Pac-12, just like Utah. And I got a lot to say about Utah later, but I expect Arizona State to take a step back, losing that bit Scadaboo the way that he did so many things for that team, taking away that element of surprise because new team in the conference from last year, and then will the coach do the same thing and take the same chances this year? Last year, nobody expected anything from them. This year, there are expectations because of last year's success. So maybe he won't gamble as much. That's my concern there. And Kelly, if there was ever a lock, if I could have put a 5% out for this show, I would say Kelly's going to give Kansas State love. Okay. All right. You're always going to give them love.
Let me say some bad things. Their secondary is horrendous. I'm absolutely terrified about some of their losses on defense, but I do think Austin Romaine is going to be a great leader for them. And hey, I'm still not sure who their starting wide receivers are going to be because there's about 6 guys that are mediocre at best. Is that what you wanted me to say?
The day that you say something
to go see this team in person, okay, I'm going to give you that much.
Yeah, I know. That's it. You got to admit, though, okay, when it comes to K-State, and you can compare me to Pittsburgh, I trash the Steelers more often on a weekly basis. I don't know, and maybe Dan can check the archives, if you've ever actually on record had a play against Kansas State.
I didn't say I have a play on them. How about that?
Okay.
Let's get into these. Let's get into this newest promotion we have over WagerTalk. It's 7 days of unlimited access. Flex picks only $69. That's right. You get 7 days of all access or flex picks for just $69. That's less than $10 a day for nonstop action. You get your expert picks from your favorite WagerTalk handicappers or everything preseason, NFL, MLB, UFC, WNBA, soccer, and more. You can pick your go-to expert or switch things up with flex picks all access. All right, Marco, we're going to go right back to you. You picked the Mountain West for your proximity out there in Las Vegas. This was a conference that I used to follow so much. They're awesome football teams, but they just don't quite hit the mark all the time. There's a team, though, in the Mountain West that every once in a while gets a lot of love, right? Last year with Ashton Jonty, they got a lot of hype surrounding him. And a lot of people say, hey, he should have got into the college football playoff. I want to hear why you think they're going to win the Mountain West.
Well, obviously, they're the favorite to win the Mountain West, and they should be. The Mountain West this year is really bad, in my opinion. And one of the teams that people are giving a little bit of love to, I'm just going to blow them up later in the show. But I'm not going to take Boise State at minus 155 to win the conference, and really no value there in that wager. So how can we make Boise State that we want to take them and we want to turn them into a plus proposition? Well, let's just go ahead and take Boise State right now to make the college football playoffs. The team is loaded where everybody else is either rebuilding or has a new coach. I haven't seen more coaches carousel one season in a particular conference as we have this year in the Mountain West. So where are they going to get beat from? Their schedule, they always schedule somebody, tough early. They have that game this year again, but I see them running the table after that. I see this team is 11-1. They win the Mountain West, 11-1. That's going to get them into the college football playoffs. And at plus 172, right now you can get them for the yes to make the playoffs. That's where I'm going to go with them. Now, as I said, the team that people have a little bit of hype and they have a new coach is UNLV. I'm going to talk about them later in more detail when we get to a segment here. But this is a team that, UNLV came out of nowhere for the last 2 seasons. But when you have success, what happens? Your small program, you have success, you can kiss your coach goodbye. And that's what's happened to UNLV. So not only does UNLV have a new coach, they lost a lot of people. We'll go into that detail. And then they've got a new coach, a coach that Kelly's familiar with from his former coaching job a few years ago. I wasn't impressed there when he was there. I'm not going to be impressed here, and I'll explain why later. But take Boise to make the playoffs. That's the best play to make out of the Mountain West.
VR, I can't really disagree with Marco here. Do you have any thoughts on the Mountain West Conference?
Yeah, and actually, I don't mind laying some chalk for them to win this conference, because I do think the ROI is worth tying up your money for a couple months. They have one of the softest strength of schedules, like in the top 20 as far as easy strength of schedule goes. You got a potent offense with a stud quarterback. Even though they got to replace Gianni at running back, they have the pieces to do that. They got two good guys back there competing. They have a solid defense with all their key pieces returning. Yeah, I think this team wins the conference with ease. And more importantly, I like Marco's bet as far as making the playoffs, because I think it's going to be hard to turn them away, especially if they run the table.
All right, let's get into the SEC. VR, this is kind of an interesting conference this year, right? Last year was pseudo interesting because Texas and Oklahoma joining, but now all of a sudden, here comes the Texas love. No different than the Big 12. Everybody thinks they're going to win the SEC. Everybody thinks they're going to win the national championship game with Arch Manning under the helm. Tell me who you like to win the SEC, and are you fading the Texas hype, or you just think this team is exponentially better?
No, Texas is they all well deserved. I mean, all the attention they're getting is very well deserved with Texas. I mean, look at what they did last year. Look at the defense, the amount of points they allowed. It's not just offense now with the excitement with Manning. But because of that, we're able to get some value that otherwise would not be on the board. Because one, I think the best teams in college football right now are completely being overlooked, and that's Georgia. I mean, they're talking about Penn State. They're talking about Ohio State. Obviously, they're talking about Texas in the SEC. They're even putting Alabama up there in the SEC too. All the surprise, possibly LSU. They're the sexy pick. But Georgia continues to be overlooked. And if you look over the last 4 seasons, few teams have won as many games as Georgia. In fact, they finished 11-3 last year, but over the last 4 seasons, they went 53-5. They've lost 5 games in 4 seasons. And those losses, they came to Alabama, Michigan, and Ohio State. Only 2 other teams lost less than 10 games in the last 4 seasons. That's Michigan and that's Ohio State. And again, rarely will we get this kind of value on a team like Georgia, who has that recency of being really good over these last 4 seasons. And you have a head coach in Smart, who in his 6 seasons, 3 SEC titles, 2 national championships. So he knows how to win when it matters, knows how to win the big games. Then started quarterback with Gunnar Stockton, finally going to get to play the full season after he was filling in last year for Beck when he got injured. He looked great. Now he's going to have an entire season, entire camp. The defense is stacked, all NFL talent all over that defense. And you have a top 5 power rated team. That's what's most important. In the 2025 season, there's 5 teams that are separated, like I said, within 2 points. Some even say within 1 point of each other. And Georgia's right there. Like on the true line on a neutral field, I wouldn't make Penn State, Ohio State, or Texas more than a 1-point favorite over Georgia. But the market may disagree with me and bet them up to -3. But I don't think the true line would be much more than 1, 1.5, maybe 2 max. But it won't be a field goal of that key 3. Or I'd be all over Georgia. So I think Georgia offers a ton of value at +360 to win arguably a very tough conference. But I think that's the team that's being overlooked.
Yeah, I bet another team to win the SEC at 18-1, and we're going to get into them here in a little bit for them to make the playoff possibly. Marco, I want to get your thoughts on the SEC. As I mentioned, the Texas hype. Of course, Alabama is always in the mix. I had an Alabama fan texting me this morning saying, Cal, do you think they're going to get in? Of course they're probably going to get in. They're going to let in a 3-loss SEC team. Why wouldn't they?
Of course, Kelly. But you know what? Ace's brilliant breakdown of the SEC. As I'm listening to all of this, this is a carbon copy to me of the Big Ten. All of the hype goes to Texas. Okay. On paper, they're the best team in the country. And there's so much hype with Arch Manning. But the problem is, just like with Penn State, with James Franklin, you've got Steve Sarkisian at Texas. The only way that we could have poetic justice is if somehow Texas and Penn State find their way to the national championship game, then finally one of those two coaches will win the big game and can get the monkey off their back. But until they do, I can't buy them at short prices. I think that the SEC is wide open. I think the SEC has a chip on their shoulder because the Big Ten has taken the limelight the last 2 seasons. I mean, for how long it was just, a parade of SEC national champions, whether it was Georgia, whether it was LSU a few years back, Alabama's dominance. They want that back. So the rest of this conference is coming to play. I think it's wide open after Texas if they don't do what they're supposed to do. But you hit the nail on the head, Kelly. You're going to get definitely 2 teams out of this conference and possibly 3. That's going to give them a chance to get somebody into the national championship game. So if you're going to look for value, it's not on Texas. There's 2 or 3 other teams in here that present good value like we talked in the Big Ten. I will be talking about one of them later.
All right. I appreciate you guys hanging out with us here on Bet On It. If you guys are new to the WagerTalk YouTube channel, please give us a thumbs up and hit that subscribe button. I'm going to talk about the conference formerly named the ACC. It's now just the Athletic Conference. And I think this might be the toughest conference to break down. You've got Tulane, UTSA, Navy, USF, and Memphis, who I can make a case for each and every one of those teams to win it. I think it is a very top-heavy conference, but one of the teams that I thought was worth betting over 9 games plus 130 at our good friends at FanDuel is Tulane. I think John Summerall has done a terrific job as a head coach, and back-to-back seasons, he's went over this season win total. Again, Memphis scares me a little bit with their defense. USF, we've seen them play great first halves and falter in the second. Navy is always going to give their best effort. And of course, those road runners there from San Antonio have made things really interesting over the last couple of years. I do not have a pick for this conference, and I apologize. Marco, if you have anything to add about the Athletic Conference, please do so now.
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head to start, Kelly. This conference is wide open. I don't see a clear-cut favorite in this one. I can make a case for several teams. Navy, they're always tough to prepare for. This is a team that that's going to come to play every single week. Texas, San Antonio, that's a team that I found some spot plays on them last year. They are a team that's up and coming, moving into this conference. This is a wide open conference. I don't take chalk here. Okay. Find value. But for me, I made no plays, no futures in this one. I'm going to just try to take this conference week by week and try to find my spots and hope that one of these teams gets a little bit overvalued after starting the season out with maybe 1 or 2 impressive wins. And then everybody jumps on the bandwagon. That's when we go the other way.
All right. VR, any thoughts here before we move along?
Yeah, I don't want to waste the viewers' time. I don't have much to add at all. I agree with Marco. I think you take this conference on a week-by-week basis and look for some of those teams that may become over or undervalued. I could look at Memphis, but I just got to see what their defense does this year. Like, that was just too weak of a defense, even in a conference like that. So pass for me.
Pass. I'll take the over 9 wins. They're at plus money. Let's talk about playoffs, guys. I asked the guys to pick me a team to sneak into the 12-team college football playoff. And I said it has to be plus money. And VR barely missed the mark. I'm kidding. Plus 125 there for LSU. VR, give me your thoughts on why you think LSU is going to be that 3rd SEC team to get in.
And it's because I had talked about Michigan a little earlier, so I wanted to share some more information. But more importantly, I didn't want to give a team that, would just throw it out there and not having a real probable chance to get there. So I know plus 125 isn't the biggest dog, but I think it's a coin flip at worst for LSU. And if you could get plus 125 on a coin flip, not a bad bet. I did read Marco's analysis, and he's going to talk about LSU a little bit later, and I think his is a lot more in-depth. And it actually helped convince me even more so that I actually placed this bet because they're just so talented on both sides of the ball. And Blake Baker now in his 2nd year at defense. And if you look, the weakness for LSU was the secondary. And what did they do? They went out there and revamped that secondary, did exactly what you're supposed to do. So the defense got even better. You got a 5th-year starter at quarterback. Texas and Georgia have have those tough schedules as well. And when I look at LSU, they're a top 10 power rated team right now to start the season, at least in my numbers. And Kelly's got a lot of motivation seeking his first playoff berth for a team like LSU. They expect to get to the playoffs at least, if not challenge for a national championship. I know the talk from him is like national championship or bust. That's all we're aiming for. But right now, just get in the playoffs, brother, and then take it from there, because you haven't been there in a while and you've had the teams to get there. At plus 125, again, I think it's a coin flip and you're getting plus 125. You want to lock up your money for that long. It's a tough SEC. But that's the dog that jumped out at me as far as actually having a legit shot to make the playoffs.
All right, Marco's going with the Big 12 team. Marco, my first question is, how many Big 12 teams do you think will get in the college football playoff? And why do you think one of them is Utah?
Well, I think you're going to probably get two of them in there, Kelly. Be totally honest with you. You gave us the opportunity to pick what conferences we wanted to do. I'll be honest with you. My first choice would have been the Big 12, but being the gentleman that I am, I saved that thinking that you would want the Big 12.
I snatched it, bro. I snatched it. I'm sorry.
Okay. All right. So I just want that out there. I love Utah. Okay. And let's start with the narrative. Okay. Is Cam Rising questionable? He was questionable every single week last year. Never played. And it was a disruption to this team. This team moved over from the Pac-12 last year. A lot of people thought high things from Utah, and they should have. They had a great defense. They had a veteran quarterback that's been injury prone, but if he was going to be healthy, this team could go far last year. Well, he was never healthy, but he was always hanging around that there was a possibility that he was going to play, and they never got any continuity on offense, and that killed them. And even though the offense didn't have that continuity last year, the defense never quit. It kept them in ball games. Now, this year, we don't have to worry about Cam Rising. He's gone. And what we've got is a new offensive coordinator. This offensive coordinator, Jason Beck, comes in from New Mexico. Along with, he's bringing the quarterback with him, Devin Dampier, who hit the transfer portal and followed his offensive coordinator to Utah. This is a team that's loaded. They've got a big offensive line to protect the quarterback, and they're going to be able to play that physical brand of football. When you go back to their success that they had the last few years in the Pac-12, why was it? It was the brand of football they played. They played defense, which we've seen in the Pac-12. Not many teams played defense. They were physical. I always referred to the Pac-12 as a finesse conference, and they didn't like the physicality of Utah. And it got them success. It got them to the Pac-12 championship games. Now they moved to the Big 12. Isn't that just an extension of what the Pac-12 was? You've got pass-happy teams. You've got teams that don't play defense. They want to go up and down the field, play in shootouts. Utah is a team that will frustrate most of the Big 12 teams this year. And getting the price that we're getting on them at plus 490 to make the playoffs, I got to do that, because if they win the Big 12, they're getting in. Plus 490 to make the playoffs, we're there. And even if they have a respectable second place finish in the Big 12, because of the conference and being the big conference that it is, the Big 12, you're going to get two teams in. So I got two shots to make the playoffs at plus 490 with a team I think can win this conference.
There are three games, Marco, that really concern me about that Utah team: Arizona State, Texas Tech, and of course my Kansas State Wildcats. On that note, I'm going to take another big dog to make the college football playoff. And it was funny, I gave their season win total out over with my friends at Pickett Sports. I went on VSiN. I talked about this team, and I said, hey, I think that they're a good long shot to win the SEC, but I do think that the most amount of value lies within this team getting in the college football playoff, and that is Florida. And in fact, Matt Humans called me a homer for saying that. I'm like, wait a minute. I get it that they won the national championship for me in college basketball, having a 40-1 ticket in pocket, but this is a completely different team and sport. Anyway, I don't know how in the world I could possibly be a homer of this team, because I have done nothing but bet against them as a favorite And I've kind of told you guys some spots as home underdogs, particularly against Tennessee, when to play on this team. You guys talk a lot about the coaches and who's in the hot seat and who has to take a big step forward this season, or they may no longer have a job. One of those guys' names is Billy Napier. Look, 7 wins in 2023, 9 wins in 2024. He's going over a season win total. Second-year starter with DJ Lagway and had plenty of offensive weapons. I think this team has a real shot to sneak into that 12-team college football playoff. I mentioned the possibility of a 3-loss SEC team getting in. I think Florida having 2 losses has a real shot to sneak in here. I like them plus 360. We're going to go around the horn again and keep this show rolling, similar to the last segment, but this time we're going season wins. And VR now agrees with Marco on the Utah Utes.
I love this bet. In fact, I released a 4% best bet to my subscribers on this, over 7.5 at -150. Moving for multiple college football groups, the same that back in 2020, 2021. So when I'm getting confirmation, I'm feeling very confident. And this one now has moved up to -175. So the market agrees with us. And I thought it had value up to -200. I thought 3 out of 4 times it actually gets there. Listen, they finished 2-7 in their first year in the Big 12, 5-7 overall, but they had a positive 35-point differential. So if you look at the Pythagorean wins and losses, their record should have been much better than 5-7. I like that they underperformed based on points scored, points allowed. That, again, their offense only scored 23.3 points a game, putting them at 106th in college football. But it was the defense, top 25 defense, that only allowed 20.7 points. Okay. Now the offense is going to be much improved. You got an offensive coordinator and quarterback coming from New Mexico, solid offensive line to protect them, good weapons for the pass game and rushing, and anything less than -200, I think, is gold here. They only got improved 3 games from last season. This team's got the ability to improve 4 or 5 games easily. Give me over 7.5. Utah up to -200.
All right, Marco mentioned this in his Mountain West breakdown, and now he's going UNLV under 8.5 wins. A little choppy here for the show, Marco.
-134, little less chalky. But here's where we're going, Kelly. It's just hard for me to get excited about this UNLV team this year. This is a team that the last 2 years brought excitement to Vegas. The UNLV football program has been non-existent. They play, in a beautiful stadium. You would think that the program would do better. Well, they finally had their guy. Barry Odom brought a sense of swagger to this team. They had a toughness to them, and they had 2 successful seasons. But as I said, when you're a smaller program like UNLV and you have success, one thing's going to happen, and it's going to happen quickly. That success is going to land your coach somewhere else, and Barry Odom got the head coaching job at Purdue. Now in comes Dan Mullen, and I just talked about that toughness that Barry Odom had. Do you know last year, Kelly, you would love this, Barry Odom, for charity, went to the South Point during a rodeo and actually rode a bull, took the team, and he rode a bull for charity, just to show that toughness. And when your coach does something like that, you're going to run through walls for him. I don't see Dan Mullen getting on any bull anytime soon. Dan Mullen, I didn't like him at Florida. I'm sorry, and I'm probably never going to talk to him on a radio show that I do here in Vegas if he watches this. But I wasn't a fan of him there. Didn't last at Florida. Got fired. Then he went behind the mic. He was on camera for ESPN as an analyst, and now he's coming out of the team, converting this team. And another bad sign for UNLV, nobody's left, okay? Everybody departed. Anybody that could have stayed didn't. This team, the cupboard's bare. So if the players weren't buying what Dan Mullen was selling, neither am I. I'm taking under 8.5 wins. I don't see them getting near it.
All right. Last but not least, I will go. And if you guys watched Bet on it the last couple of years. We made fun of Mario Cristobal a lot, and it was, by his own doing. You don't want to get Cristobal, as our good friend Joe Ranieri used to say. And somehow this man won 10 games by the grace of God last year. And you know what he's never been able to do? Do that back-to-back in his career. If you guys recall, we bet against this team 4 times last season. And it took Georgia Tech to finally get us the outright winner. That Cal game, Virginia Tech, Louisville, man, Cam Ward pulled out tricks against us to somehow get that W. And now he's been replaced by Carson Beck, Georgia transfer. And I'm sure the Georgia Bulldog fans in the comment section are not going to be very happy with me. But let's remember, he was replaced due to injury after being down in the SEC championship game to Texas. Stockton came in and was able to win them that game. And that was all she wrote. Now Beck has started his tenure in Coral Gables with a bunch of drama, if you guys follow along on social media. And I'm just not sure Miami is the place for a guy like this. I could be dead wrong. I could have to eat my words. But I think the ultimate test on how Florida and Miami are both going to do this year is that game coming right up around the corner here for week 1. I think Florida's going to get the win for week 1. And that is going to solidify Miami under 8.5 wins, plus 130. Marco, really quickly, because I totally forgot, you were supposed to promo yourself after your Utah breakdown, and I did not give you that opportunity, so I want to give you that opportunity right now.
I appreciate it. It's probably because I was busting your, with Kansas State. But Kelly, we got a special deal going over at WagerTalk. Last year, Ben Burns was the number 1 football handicapper, money one, college and pro combined. I was the number 2 football handicapper, college and pro football, money one combined. So what did we do at WagerTalk? We put a special deal together. You can get both Ben and myself for the entire football season, college and pro. You'll go all the way through the Super Bowl, get all of our plays, both handicappers, for a combined price of $14.98. That in itself is a fantastic offer for the football season. But you also get 2 bonuses. You're going to get a 7-day flex option for both cappers, where you could use that anytime you want whenever we have baseball down the stretch. So you're locked in for all of your football. You can save those flex picks to use on a baseball day if one of us have a big play or something and you want to follow along. Or if you bet the WNBA, and I know everybody just turned off whenever I said that because people don't like to bet the WNBA. I have been killing it. See me with the WNBA play and you like money, you don't have to watch it. Just cash it. We've done extremely well with the WNBA number 2 the last 2 years in money one. So check that offer out at wagertalk.com.
All right, let's get into those national championship picks. And as I told the guys, is there anything worse than someone picking the chalk plays to win the national championship? Yeah, Texas is the front runner. You got the usual suspects in Georgia, Alabama, Ohio State. But I told these guys, give me 15-1 or better, right? Like, that's fine. You want to tell me that you think Texas is going to win it all, but give me something juicy. Just for reference, the 5 biggest underdogs to ever win the national championship. 2002, Ohio State was 19-1. USC won it the following year as a 20-1 underdog. LSU in 2019, 33-1. Ohio State 2014, 44-1. And the biggest dog to ever win the national championship, the Auburn Tigers, as at 50-1. So VR, let's get into your national championship pick. But before we do, tell me what you got going on over for the college football season at WagerTalk.
I wish this was live because I just bet a doubles Cincinnati ATP, the men's doubles. So hopefully if this was live, I'd be giving that out. But yeah, I got the season package up, NFL and college football. I combined it together. So you get all those futures, already 9 in there, including a 5% best bet season win total in the NFL. There'll be a lot more between now and when the season kicks off. Staying more selective, but definitely worth tying up some money on those futures because the ROI just has been so good long term. And yeah, other than that, week by week, and of course I got a 5% going in the UFC this Saturday. So excited, busy couple days, busy couple months ahead. And this college football season, NFL season, ready to do some damage. So make sure you tune in, week out, bet on it, baby.
Yeah, I just realized you and Marco both have the same national champion pick. So I'm going to let you take the helm first. Then we'll go to Marco to see if he's got anything to add.
Yeah, and it's because we, had to go with 15-1 or higher. And it's funny, it was probably 14-1. And then yesterday when I look, it got it was a 15-1. And just going back, I don't want to take the time to repeat myself, but I just think LSU is that team that if things go right, like they could really make a run. They're that loaded on both sides of the ball. That the problem is they're in one of the toughest conferences. And because of that, you got to have some luck go your way, like, some injuries on not wishing bad on others, but that's what you need. Some bad things to happen to the Georgias of the world, to the Alabamas, to Texas. And then they have a shot to make a run. Again, 4 seasons in, you got to do something, bro. Like you have the talent. So again, I'll let Marco take it from there, but I like LSU at 15-1. I think it's live.
All right, Marco, let's hear your analysis on why you think Brian Kelly is headed back to the national championship.
Okay, Kelly, I've given you a lot of grief on the show so far. I'm going to give VR a little bit. I think he fabricated that 15-1 just because he was scared to get yelled at by you and snuck it in.
On bad side.
Okay, because Kelly wanted 15-1 or more. My opening line, guys, in our Slack channel for our notes for the game is I've got LSU at 14-1 just to piss Kelly off because it's not 15-1. All right. So I do
Marco,
like LSU.
I'm just a nice girl from Kansas. Why would I ever get mad at you?
You don't bother nobody.
If you guys ever heard her yell at me when I screw up on social media, the 64-year-old trying to do TikTok and Instagram, she forgets how old I am, but we're trying. She has given me some love lately on it, so I must be getting better. Look at LSU. I look at this team, and the first thing I'm going to say, yes, this is year 4 for Coach Kelly. That's important because now there is no more excuses. You've got all the players that you want. Normally it used to be, year 2 to year 3 were the big years where you saw it, but now because of the portal, it has to be even faster. Teams expect results quicker because you're bringing that big influx and making wholesale changes. They've got everybody they want, and it starts at quarterback. You've got a 5th-year senior quarterback in Garrett Nussmeier going for that. This team is going to be good defensively. They're going to be excellent offensively. And you look at him, he's coming off a season where he threw for over 4,000 yards. He had 29 TDs. And as I said, it looks even better this year on paper for that offense. The LSU defense was good last year. They held 9 of 13 opponents to 27 or fewer points. And I know 27 maybe sounds a little bit high, but in today's college football, no, it's not. We've seen, a lot more scoring in college football. Holding 9 of 13 to 27 or less is huge. And I look for this team to continue what they did last year. They were a balanced offense. What that translated to was over 32 minutes per game time of possession. That was 16th best in the country. Those are all the ingredients that you need to win a national championship. Good defense, a playmaker at quarterback, and be able to have a balanced offense that you're not one-dimensional. I think they make a serious run in the SEC, gets them into the playoffs. And once they're in the playoffs, I'll take my chances with this team at that eye-popping 14-1. Sorry, Kelly.
See, then I just had to go do something like this. A team that's not ever going to win the national championship, but I do think there's an immense amount of value. We mentioned the amount of parity in the Big 12. There's a 5-horse race there. We mentioned that we think at least 2 Big 12 teams are going to get into the college football playoff. And I thought, you know what? I'm kind of a little crazy. This isn't going to happen, but let's look at a team that has spent an ungodly amount of money, oil money. In fact, they spent more money than 94% of the schools in college football. And in fact, the past 2 years, they have 15x'd their NIL spending budget. They got 17 guys as part of their new rebuild just for this year. Yeah, I'm talking about Joey McGuire's squad, Texas Tech at 100-1. I think this team has a real opportunity to play last year's Arizona State, right? A team that kind of came out of nowhere and got into the college football playoff after winning the Big 12. I think Texas Tech has value going over their season win total. I think they have value going to win the Big 12. And no, they're not going to win the national championship. And I know I'm supposed to pick a national champion, but everything is so chalky. VR mentioned there was not one team that was 1.5 points, 2 points better than others. So I thought, you know what? I'm just going to go off the deep end. Texas Tech is currently 100-1 to win the Natty. Again, I just want to see this team be able to get into the college football playoff, and being able to do that means that we're alive and we have other opportunities to make some money. So give me Texas Tech over their season win total. To give me Texas Tech to win the Big 12, and why not throw a little flyer on them to win the national championship. Let's bring the guys back in. This was our first show back together as the gang. We're also currently going to do some NFL preview shows, which we're very excited about. If you're looking for more information on that, head over to the WagerTalk YouTube channel. And then, of course, live from Ireland. That's right, guys. I'm going to be doing the first college football Bet on It episode. There's only 5 games, but we've got to do an episode. And I'm going to try not to drink too many Guinnesses before that one. So thank you guys again for hanging out with us here on the WagerTalk YouTube channel, as well as your various social platforms. Don't forget to hit that like button and, of course, subscribe so you never miss another episode of Bet on It.